Hi YouTube, welcome to another episode of Mike's Expat Kitchen, where we cook German dishes with American ingredients. Today we're gonna cook goulash, the staple of German cuisine, and I like it the traditional way as I enjoyed it growing up in Bavaria, which is Rindsgulasch, which means beef goulash. And since that takes a while to cook, it takes about an hour to simmer or so, I'm gonna throw in some Spätzle to soak up the thick sauce that is produced by the simmering. Well, guess what I bought at Whole Foods the other day? A giant slab of top sirloin steak, almost 2.5 pounds. That's gonna be perfect for making the goulash. Just give it a quick rinse and dab it dry. Now, one thing to know about Germans is they don't like fatty meat, so we're gonna strike a balance here by removing the excess fat and cutting the piece into cubes. Leaving the finer fat marblings in place is definitely fine. We just want to remove the solid fat pieces. Of course, we know that fat greatly improves the taste of meat. It's just that if you serve goulash with excess fat on it, your guests won't be happy, and some will probably even try to remove the fat at the table. I know, that doesn't make any sense, but just keep that in mind when you're inviting Germans for dinner. So we have about 2 pounds left after trimming off the excess fat, which should be enough to feed about 3 or 4. Next ingredient to prep is onions. Goulash needs a fair amount, so for these 2 pounds of meat we need about 1 pound of onions. That's about 4 or so medium-sized ones. So that's a lot of cutting, and if you tear up easily, I'd recommend you put some food wrap over the cut onions so that the fumes that get released when you're cutting them doesn't get into your eyes. And here you go, all done. It's a good plate. As I said, it's about 1 pound of onions for the 2 pounds of meat that we have there. Next up, we're going to need 1 small bell pepper. Rinse it, cut it open, remove the white parts, and then chop it into fine strips. Also, for a little bit more intense flavor, let's cut a clove of garlic and mince it really finely. That's kind of optional, although recommended. Also optional, tomatoes. To save some time, you can use the peeled and diced tomatoes from the can. We're going to need about 8 ounces or half a can. Also, to make sure the goulash is going to be nice and moist, we're going to need some chicken broth, about 2 cups. Keep those in a small pan and heat it up so it's ready when we need it. Now let's start cooking. Put about 2 tablespoons of cooking oil in a pan and heat it up to medium to high heat. Add the meat cubes and let them brown a little bit. Make sure not to overcrowd the pan. You want to work in batches here. I only put in half now, and I'm gonna twist and turn them around until they're browned on all sides, and then I'm gonna move on to the next batch. This batch is about ready, so I'm gonna take the cubes out of the pan and put them into a bowl to rest. Ready for the next one? Put in some more oil, let it heat up, and add the meat cubes from the second batch. Brown those also, and when they're ready, simply mix them with the batch that we put aside previously. Now that all of our meat cubes are browned from all sides, remember, don't cook them all the way through, just brown them on the outside. Let's add the onions. Dump them all in and then stir thoroughly, making sure that all of the brown bits stuck to the bottom of the pan are released now. The onions will do a nice job of that. Now let's add some spices. We need a fair amount of paprika, about a tablespoonful, and mix that also thoroughly. Let's even add some more paprika. That's a dominant spice in every goulash. Then let's add the previously minced garlic. And we need some more fluid in the pan to create a nice thick sauce. So let's get this previously heated chicken broth and add only a little bit to it. So this part is important to get right. Don't add too much fluid. We don't want to cook goulash soup, which is a very good dish in its own right, but goulash with a thick sauce. Add about a teaspoon of table salt, and then add the previously cut bell peppers and the canned tomatoes. One last spice to add is thyme. In German, that's Thymian, and only about half a teaspoon. We don't want it to stick out. Just a hint in the flavor is what we want. Stir it one more time and then put the lid on and set the kitchen timer to an hour. This is the time for the simmering, but check every 10-15 minutes or so. If the fluid level is too low, we need to add a little bit more of this preheated chicken broth that we keep standing by. And while this is going, we have enough time to make some homemade Spätzle noodles, ideal for soaking up the thick sauce that comes with the goulash. For the Spätzle dough, we need 400 grams or about 14 ounces of regular flour, and we put in 4 eggs. Remember, 1 egg for every 100 grams or 3 to 4 ounces of flour. We got 14 ounces of flour, so that makes 4 eggs. The dough also needs salt. About half a teaspoon of table salt is fine. For mixing the dough, you can use a regular hand mixer or one of these fancy KitchenAid standard mixers that I have here. While this is going, we need to add some water. Aim for a honey-like consistency, so not too much water or the spätzles will be really thin, but a thick flowing dough is what we're looking for. This should only take 2 to 3 minutes of mixing. And check regularly if the consistency is what you're looking for. If it's too thick, add some more water. Or if you put in too much water by accident, you could thicken it by adding some more flour. But this is just perfect. Since I'm going to make the Spätzle in batches and I want to make sure they stay warm until I'm ready to serve them, I'm going to heat up the oven to 350 and put a baking dish in there. Now let's check one more time if the goulash needs more fluid. Yes, it does. Add some more of that boiling chicken broth and put the lid back on. Alright, let's start making the Spätzle. Bring a large pot of water to a boil and add about 2 teaspoons of table salt. Now it's time to break out the Spätzle maker. If you don't have one yet, you can buy them on Amazon. They're really cheap. Let the really tangy dough that we just completed mixing into the Spätzle maker and start moving it back and forth so the Spätzles keep dripping into the hot water. Keep stirring the Spätzles in the hot water with a strainer until they have about doubled in size. Get the baking dish that we heated up in the oven out and ready to receive the Spätzle once they're ready. Careful there though, because that baking dish is hot. Those Spätzle look good to me now. Take them out of the water using the strainer, let them drip off carefully, and then dump them into the baking dish. Lather, rinse, repeat until you've used up all the dough, and you should have a fair amount of Spätzles. If you have too much, no worries, you can heat them up the next day, they're just as good. Let's check on our goulash one more time. If we need more chicken broth, add a little bit. And now let's go for the final round of seasoning. We're going to use a large strip of lemon peel and half a cup of red wine. I have this really good Italian wine here. You don't need to have premium wines in order to season the goulash. It's just that what I had sitting around at home. Throw in the lemon peel and also add about half a cup of heavy whipping cream. Stir everything and put the lid on for 2 more minutes. Almost time to serve. Locate the lemon peel, which can take a little bit, and remove it from the pan. Take a quick sample of the sauce and see if it needs more salt or pepper, and add those if required. Alright, this looks good now. Let's serve it up on plates. Put 1 or 2 scoops of Spätzle on a plate and add a generous amount of goulash with sauce. Don't overcrowd the plate. Keep everything neat. And here you go. Here's your Rindsgulasch with Spätzle. Just like in Bavaria. Works with beer or red wine, maybe even the same one that we added to the sauce. Guten Appetit. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more recipes from Mike's Expat Kitchen, please subscribe to the channel.